podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Cardiff Central Podcast.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Cardiff Central, the unofficial Cardiff Rugby Supporters podcast. I'm joined, as always, by Carwyn. Carwyn, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. And we have a new guest. I think going forward will be a bit of a regular appearer. Is Harley Worthy? How are you doing?
Hello, boys. Nice to finally see you both after listening to the pod for the last few episodes.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to put a face to a name. You are a regular on the Wrap as well, the Cardiff representative on there. So do you want to just do a bit of an intro for, I imagine most of our listeners will have already listened to there, but if there is anyone who's not a Wrap listener who's joining us, if just to let them know who you are.
So I'm Harley. I'm Ricky from Barry, currently recording via Exeter due to work and things. I'm probably not one of the diehards who were there pre-regionalisation. I sort of came into it during my uni. And came onto Twitter purely to talk about rugby, and I think I must have made the right or wrong people notice, and sort of got drafted into various podcasting.
Okay, that's good. Do you go to Cardiff Uni?
I went to Cardiff Uni.
Yeah.
So I did undergraduate and PhD there, and then I said then.
No, that's funny because we were saying I think that's all three of us are alumni. I think Lee is as well, isn't he? So
yeah, I think he said he was.
Yeah. So what sort of year did you? Not that I want to age you. What sort of time period were you at Cardiff?
So undergrad started 2010, finished 2014. So
Okay.
That was a 4-year course. If you hear any sort of weird warbles in the background, that's my baby. He's not quite ready to go to bed yet. And then PhD then up until 2018, 2019.
Okay, that's cool. Because I was there 2009 to 2012. And then actually, do you live in Exeter itself? Because I used to live until last year, I lived in Columpton. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I know Columpton.
Yeah, just down the road there. That's funny.
Yeah,
Small world.
I actually had to drive through it to get around a traffic accident on the M5 yesterday.
No,
I live in a little town called Oxley St Mary, which is about
I've heard of it.
20-minute drive out.
Yeah, that's good. So, being down there, how often do you manage to get to games? Are you season ticket holder, or is it more infrequent? I guess
It's a bit more infrequent, so I tend to come. So if it's like Friday game, I just can't finish work in time and things like that. So I try and go to a fair few. Try and get to the European home games and then as many of the derbies as possible, at least the home derbies.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, it got a bit touchy last season with the huge increase in cost of petrol.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's. Yeah, I said I have been season ticket holder in the past, looking at moving to Cardiff potentially with a new job. So then I'll probably be back on the South Terrace.
Yeah, good. South Stands. We like the South, don't we? Carwyn's there as well in the press box, but I feel like I'm grilling you a little bit. What's your PhD and what are you doctor of?
Doctor of Biochemistry.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. I did
protein engineering sort of thing. I specialise in.
We won't go into that too much detail. I did biology, and I've forgotten everything. But I did sea turtles was my dissertation, and couldn't really tell you any more about that. But I don't think I know enough to even blag half a conversation about biochemistry. So it was bioengineering, you said. Yeah,
well, biochemistry, a bit of protein engineering, and I sort of dabble in a lot of things. Currently doing some stuff with mammalian cells.
Okay. We'll talk about that another time.
I've got very little input in this. I've just realised I was thinking my music degree and postgrad in broadcast journalism is not going to help me much in this.
We've got an eclectic mix, which is good. So we'll move on to the Dragons game, just gone. We'll see, was it 9-16 to Cardiff? First win of the season.
Thriller.
Thriller in Newport. I think generally the consensus is that it wasn't a very good game. I think that's probably another statement. We'll get our excuses out of the way early. The weather was poor, to say the least. There's a lot of errors from both sides. I think, I don't know, I was kind of going into it when the team sheet came out, when we had a lot more internationals back. I was kind of thinking, well, we should do a job here, and that kind of never materialized. What are both of your thoughts generally? I know, Karen, you said you didn't watch too much of the game, but from your kind of what you did see, or your reaction, or what you've read about it.
Yeah, I think the general response is it was a bit dire, wasn't it? I think that's pretty much the summation to give. Most of those sort of games, they are decided by a moment of brilliance or a moment of calamity. And if you're a Dragons fan, it definitely was the latter. Poor chip kick. Good, to be fair, good hassling, good harrying by Cardiff's defence, good hands from Teddy Williams, and some good gas from Mason Grady. But at the end of the day, that was probably the high point of what was a pretty dire game. You've got your highlights. You've got your Cam Winnett soaring above all the else and carrying on his brilliant start to the season. You've got your comedic moment with Jared Ross, which I'm sure you two would touch on a bit more, whether he was unlucky or whether it was a lack of attacking prowess, or for want of a better word. But yeah, a win's a win and was never in doubt, was it? It was 17 on the bounce now.
Yeah, I'd say, I don't know if I'd say never in doubt. I think there was a few moments where I was a bit benched, shall we say. I think, yeah, I mean, I think overall we looked pretty dominant in a lot of the areas. How about you, Harley?
It was a weird one. So I mean, first experience of the game was on listening to it on Radio Wales, driving back from Wales visiting family, and it seemed like we were pretty much dominant without being able to getting over that final hurdle. And watching it back, I mean, it was maybe not quite that bad, but there were definitely a few chances we probably, you'd think, there might be, Thomas Williams went blind and didn't, maybe actually going through the phases a bit more might have helped, or missing, didn't quite get into the corner. But I mean, mostly it seemed like we did the bare minimum that was needed. I thought after our scrum, I thought we'd be a bit stronger up front based on how well our scrum and more went, and Dragons actually managed to get a nudge on us in the scrum. But I think part of that was the fact they started 4 second rows and due to injuries and everything. But it's a typical Wales Dragons game, isn't it? It's never one that you're going to be putting up for game of the year.
Yeah, I think, as you say, overall there were quite a few moments where we could have seen a lot more tries. They were just, I think both sides were maybe a bit edgy or a bit cagey. Cabango didn't take that offload from Grady, and I think what they were trying to do in the first half was working. It just wasn't working, and then resulting in a try. I think you said a lot to be said about the defence. I thought that was really good. We didn't let try in from sort of generic open play against Benetton. They did a little chip and a chase, and then a more, and we didn't let the Dragons cross the line either. And I think 2 of our tries came from the defence. Obviously in this game they did that. It was a bit of a daft kick really, but the defence was up, and that's where we got the charge down from. And then against Benetton, they did something daft, and that player tried to do a little offload from the deck, and our players are up and capitalising on it. So that's good to see. Apparently we're second. I looked according to the URC website, so don't stats check me on this, but we've got the second best defence in the URC at the moment out of 16, which is good. And that's an area where in the past I think we've been accused of being quite soft at times. So that's good to see.
Yeah.
Them build up. And I think what I wanted to see, a win, which we got, and we started the Benetton game really well first half, and then dropped off massively. And I think this time we actually built into the game well. The tactics in the first half weren't quite working, but they were very nearly working for most of it. And then the Dragons just couldn't really get out of their half. And then when we were trying to get out of the same half in the last 40 minutes, I think we were getting a lot more success. I think a lot of that was down to Thomas Williams' box kicking. And Cam Winnett, as you said, I think he was really good. Again, he was good in the Benetton game, obviously man of the match in this game. Well deserved, I think. So, a question for you both then. I kind of asked this on Twitter and didn't get too much of a response, but obviously we've got him and we've got Beetham, both kind of talented prospects at fullback. How do you manage the minutes between the two of them? Because if Cam when it's going well, you don't want to drop him. Or dropping might not be the right word. Maybe give Beetham more minutes if he's playing well, but then you don't want a player that's not getting any game time. So how do you see us should be managing that going forward?
I think it's an interesting one. Pre-season, you saw a lot of Beetham starting games, didn't you? I think he started both, didn't he? And he was brilliant. And I was really excited about him. He's build-wise, they're very different sorts. Beetham's a sort of, for one, Lee Byrne-esque, that big build that can cut an angle, can break through arm tackles. Winnett's more of a whip-it, stepper. He's going to break ankles and break through that way. The interesting element, I think, with it is, bar seeing Beetham a bit on, I think he's played a little bit of wing, bit of centre. Winnett, I've pretty much only seen him play fullback. And that probably means you're unlikely to see both in the same team, especially at the moment with, kind of a pretty stacked at centres now after pre-season, looking as if there weren't going to be many around. But I don't see Beetham playing much there, maybe a bit of wing if that comes available. So you are talking about one or the other. At the moment, I don't see why you drop Winnett after the first couple of games. And I know that's harsh on Beetham, and obviously he's spent 9 months out, but at the end of the day, that's professional rugby, and that's kind of, I know that might sound a bit harsh, but that's how it happens. And you get an injury, you might miss your opportunity, and players come in, and then you've got to pick up when they get injured or when they're unavailable for whatever reason. And I think that's the reality of what we're looking at. I'm a big fan of Winnett. I really like him. I actually think if you're talking a fullback for Wales's future, Beetham's probably a player that Gatland's going to like a bit more, just looking at his size and general build. I don't know if Gatland's going to be as big a fan of Winnett, but that's, last time I tried to guess Gatland's brain was not the most successful. So, I personally, I don't see why you drop Cam at the moment. And for the way that I like to think Cardiff want to play, I think at the moment he suits it, and I'd like to see him there for a few games at least. In short, to do with balancing it out, there's not much balance in my summation. I think just stick with the guy in form.
No, I think that's kind of where I was kind of ending up. I think if you've got a player who's playing well, you'd be foolish to drop him necessarily, because you're upsetting the balance of the team. Yes, you kind of want to give them both minutes, but you can't if they're in the same position. And I think, giving one all of the minutes if that's beneficial to the team, I think that's, one way to go. I think also, I don't know if Gatland is going to look at Beetham if he's not been playing for us.
No.
I'd be surprised at that. Would he be looking at Winnett this season? If he is, when it's away with the Six Nations, is that then a time for Beetham to have his opportunity? What do you think, Ali?
So I think as well, the game, like it depends what Jockey wants and what he wants his fullback doing. So Beetham's a bit more of a playmaking back, in a similar way to how Pivot was using halfpenny towards the end of his tenure, using more for distribution. He's a clever kicker. So if Sherratt wants to move more towards that dual playmaker system, leaning into it heavily, then you might see him start coming into some games. But I think unless Winnett's carrying a knock or just needs a rest because he's had so many minutes, I'd say you keep him on. It's the same sort of argument with between Thomas Young and Ellis Jenkins, when Jenkins had come back to fitness but couldn't get in the side because you weren't going to drop Thomas Young. He was one of our best players last season. I think you can't really do that. As for not playing for Cardiff, that's not stopped Gatland before. But then that tends to be players who've already broken into his team. So I think if Gatland's seen enough of Beetham beforehand that he thinks, actually, no, that's what I want my next fullback to be, then I can see him pulling pulling him out even without game time. I don't think he will though, because as I said, usually it's the players like George North who haven't played for a while, but Gatland already knows what they can do. So
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, I think Aaron's trying to call, but yeah,
Beetham
was out. Wells in.
Beetham was out for a while. How much did he play? Was it mainly the under-20s? Yeah, I think he did play for Cardiff. Is he part of the Harlequins ragtag misfit squad?
Winnett was fullback. Yeah.
I think he played. I think he might have played the Toulouse game. Beetham might have played the Toulouse game, and I think that might be how he got injured. Winnett came in for the Harlequins fixture, and then basically that was, and he sort of was there or thereabouts. And I think he was in that dreaded Benetton game that definitely did not happen at the end of that season.
I remember he was in one of them because Beetham got a red card in one of those games. Something. So yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised if Gatland was looking at Beetham, but you never know.
I may be pushing them on a bit there, to be fair. I think it was more of a discussion of types of players. I think that's I think you're looking at when it's more McNichol, like you can do that brilliant offload or a brilliant moment, but also there may be a bit. But he's, to be fair, what's been most impressive about Winnett this season is his consistency and his quality in the air. So maybe he's now showing that he can do all of it.
See, to me, he reminds me of Liam Williams more. Like he reminds me of a very young Sanjay. Like he's just got that. His work under high ball was faultless from yesterday. So. I'm very excited to see how he goes.
He's also
and probably gonna be our number one.
He's also got a bit of the other side of Sanjay as well, hasn't he? That little like shithousery, to use that language. I think that's a fair summation of it. Really, he's not afraid to, put it in the opposition's faces and put himself about.
Yeah, I do think Cardiff need a few more players like that, to be honest. I think that's one that alongside one of our weaknesses. I think is we probably go into ourselves a little bit too much when things are going down. There's not someone who's, basically we need we need like a modern Bradley Davis type player. You just in your face.
So speaking of kind of an abrasive player, I want to move on to Tinas de Beer. Just have a little bit chat about him. So I'll start by saying this. I really like De Beer at the moment. I think he's been quite good. I think he's a good signing. I think long term he will come into his own. I think we'll see that over the weeks and months. A little bit inconsistent perhaps in the first couple of games. I think the first half against Benetton he was really good, and then up until about the 50th minute, and then he kind of flagged. Yesterday, he was a little bit, again, inconsistent, and then maybe some questions about his place kicking. But I think my view on that is what I've said before is he's not come to us from the Stormers or the Sharks. And I think some people kind of think, oh, he's a South African fly-off, he's coming over and he's going to be a bit like Manny Lebok. I think it's a step up for him. And he did quite a good post-match interview after the game yesterday, saying he's learning a lot and getting a lot of support from players like Thomas Young and Thomas Williams and some of the internationals that have come back. But he's not the finished article yet. But I think you do have to, I don't like the phrase trust the process, but give someone time to build up into it, and I think it will come good. That's my view on it. What do you both think about him at the moment and in the future?
I think there's one awkward thing with him is you've got to look at that expectation element, and you say he's not the finished article. Well, historically, if you bring in a player from overseas, they are the finished article, or they are feasibly going to reach in 3 years' time, going to qualify for Wales, and that's the aim. That's the succession plan. This is not the case. It's now 5 years for a start, but in this player's case, he's not the finished article, and he's only just come in from the last couple of years. And what is he, 27? Am I right in saying that? And so it's a completely different ball game to previous seasons. I think that's just where Cardiff are and all the regions are, is they can't afford these finished article players anymore. So they need to go for players that need to grow and need to develop and need to become better inside the team. And I like him, as we've mentioned before. I think he's got a running game. I think he's got a kicking game. But yeah, the inconsistency has been highly evident. Those 10 minutes that he sort of went off the boil against Benetton, quite big, quite drastically so, and then got a little bit of goal kicking issues last week. So yeah, there's moments in his game that needs to be developed, but otherwise, yeah, he's one that I think Cardiff fans can get excited about and build a season around.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest worries when particularly with losing Jared was, how are you going to find a 10 who's a similar mold? Because whenever we've had backup 10s, they've just not, they don't play the same way as Jared, and you feel like some of the other players step around it. Whereas I feel like Tina's at least fits in that mold. Thomas Williams is doing some chips over the top, which he'd always do for Jared, and Tina's knew exactly where he needed to be for that. His goal kicking needs a bit of work, but he's not a terrible goal kicker. I wouldn't say he's as inconsistent as some. You bring up Manny Labok, and he can be 100% one day and then 2% the next. It's it's very hot and cold. So I think there's promise there. I slightly worried with Jockey's bench, the way he uses, or rather doesn't use his bench necessarily. Like I feel like, last week I felt like he needed to bring Robson on, and if only just to change perspective and just bring some fresh energy. Like I feel like Curry, maybe Penis isn't quite up to the conditioning needed for, that step up from Curry Cup to URC. I've not played in either. I've played second division rugby for about 20 minutes. Like that's, at a time that's, it's nothing. But yeah, and then not using the 9s and stuff. But Thomas Williams had such a good game. There's no way I was subbing him off, particularly when you're not going to have him for another couple of weeks. But I think he'll get there. You're right. We're not going to be signing, these fantastic, all-rounded 10s. But then we also had to find a compromise between that and, maybe getting someone who's a bit rough around the edges, or throwing in an academy person who's not really, he's played a bit of Premiership. Welsh Premiership which is a really big step up. So I think we just got to get a bit. His goal kicking's probably going to get better as he gets used to the conditions around here. Give him a game in Connacht, and be able to kick anywhere.
Yeah, I agree. I think I really like him. I think he will come good. And I think the point you mentioned about signing overseas players and then in 3 or 5 years he qualifies for Wales, I personally don't think we should be viewing every signing on, especially younger players, on whether they're going to be Welsh qualified or not. I think, we need a core group of players that are going to be at the club year round. I think that's really something to build on. And I think, is he likely to try and break into the Springbok squad? Probably not at this point, although, you don't want to say never. So if he's here year round and he's kind of like a playmaker, similar to Jared Evans, he was overlooked by Wales. So we kept him for the bulk of the year. And I think that's really important for us going forward. We've got these sort of downsized squads. We need a core that the team can build around, I think. Which builds us nicely into welcoming our guests. I'll say this evening as we're recording. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hello. It's very nice of you to invite me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We were speaking a couple of weeks ago about which guests we wanted on, and I kind of mentioned yourself at the start because this is supposed to be a supporters podcast, so you're obviously integral in that kind of role at the club, and I think it's quite timely that it's worked out this week in particular with what's sort of happening on Sunday. So for the listeners, could you just give us a quick introduction about yourself and the Supporters Trust for people who aren't aware, just sort of what it is you do, what you do in the trust and what the Supporters Trust does?
Okay, well, I'm Lynn Glaister and I'm chair of the CF10 Rugby Supporters Trust, one of the founding members. We formed ourselves 7 years ago because we felt there was a gap in the supporters arena for people who wanted to have their say and sort of bring issues that supporters were feeling to the fore. And at that point, of course, we were sort of really worried about whether our great club that's sort of been there since 1876, we were sort of fighting for the heritage of our club from that time to be actually recognised, and that history. And I think we've been very successful in that, and the club have now totally embraced that heritage. So we're very pleased about that. So we're a community benefit society, so we are a sort of formal company. We have a board, and it costs £1 to join for life, so we're not very expensive. And our main interest is actually to sort of try to articulate those moans from the terrace and the stands. And we meet with Richard Holland, the chief exec, generally once a month, probably at the moment because of the World Cup and things. It's been a bit more of a break in that, but generally we meet every few weeks. And I'm also a member of the joint supporters group Cymru, which brings representatives from the 5 supporters groups, because Cardiff's got 2. But that also Chris 16, which is the Scarlets Supporters Trust, the Dragons and the Ospreys, and we come together as a group. And most recently, we formed the Save Our Game campaign, because at that point we hadn't even signed a deal for the money. And Steve Phillips, the ex-chief executive of WRU, hated the supporters. I think it was easy to say, because he got terrible press every time we got involved, and because we insist on minuting our meetings, because we're supporters organisations. So we meet with the WRU once a quarter now. Nigel Walker, one of the good things he's done is reinstigated those meetings. So we're meeting with the new chair and Nigel Walker and Simon Rimmer, the comms guy, on the 20th of November next. So it's a bit, there's many things we've done, and you can have a look on our website. We've very proud of some of our members who have created one of the best online rugby museums in the world, with a ultimate aim of getting a proper museum on the site.
I think I've mentioned that before. Obviously, there's rumours abound about the redevelopment of the site at the Arms Park, and I think one thing I'd love to see is there's so much history, and as you said, heritage. It's so important, not just for us as a club, but it used to be, or still is in a way, the national stadium as well. So that kind of combined, I think it's telling. It's metaphorical, but we literally share a wall with the Principality Stadium. It's literally physically couldn't get more separated, and I think a rugby museum would be such an attraction for so many people, not just Cardiff, but if we could get our own museum, if that's what it needs to be, I think that would be a massive boost for the club, and potentially a source of income as well, which might be useful.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's genuinely one of our real aims, and I think one that we're very intent on getting. But it's not all about the history, but the history is important. It roots us. It gives us a reason to campaign to be at that on that site at Cardiff Arms Park. It gives us a reason to fight for the future, really, as well. So I think it's all integral. So I don't really want us to be badged just as those people who are interested in history, because we are, but very much interested in the future as well.
Yeah, I think, well, if you don't know where you've come from, it's difficult to know where you want to go. I think if you look at a lot of the big, brands of sports teams, if you like, a lot of the big football clubs, it's all they lean into it massively. I think they do that for a reason, because it is popular with people, and it avoids kind of I don't know, plastic franchises, gets called a lot, and you don't really want to.
It's something that Matt Sherratt is very much pushing with his players at the moment. Sort of that feeling that you are part of have a club with history, and you need to be proud of that, and you play for the shirt, and he's very much sort of invoking that side of things as well, so that when we are watching our poor players at times, because we've experienced and the like, it's going to be a difficult season, but I think they want, they play with pride. You could hear it in Cameron Winnett's player of the match speech. It was lovely, wasn't it?
Yeah, brilliant.
And I think Matt's approached the comms people in Cardiff who've talked to us about getting some more info about various players that they can use as sort of this is what you could be, this is what this is what the history and the passion that you're following, really.
Yeah, there's a couple of young faces that are really strong, guys to follow. I've talked at length about Alex Mann, your Theo Cabango's obviously, whether he's talking in Welsh or English, he's very articulate, very very well spoken on, and obviously does his talking on the pitch as well, and that's great to see. Is that when you say inspiring the next generation, what else can be done on that, do you think? Because obviously, they get the kids on the pitch at full time and they sign all the autographs. That's become a new thing going in the last couple of years as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can do our bit, but I think the WRU needs to step up and have a proper strategy for rugby. If it's got one, they keep it quite well hidden, don't they? And I know we're often seen as being very critical of the WRU, but this new regime with the new directors, they've got to start respecting the professional clubs, and then they've got to start respecting the community game as well, and how that, and the academies, and it's like the new league, Cardiff and Ponty and Merthyr are saying it's commercial suicide if we go into that new league. Well, the cap is so low that you can hardly put a team together. So if you can hardly put a team together, how are you going to encourage people to get to come out? But I think we need to have respect in ourselves. We need to, every time they put the shirt on, every time somebody goes to represents the club, they need to be seen to be, this is Cardiff, and we're in the Rugby World Hall of Fame, and we've been there since 1876, and we're going to be there, and we are going to be great again. It's been quite a while, but we've had the odd moment, when we've, I stood in Bilbao with a rather unexpected win. So we will have times, but hopefully when we get our investor situation sorted, then perhaps we can actually start to do what we can do, but then calling on the WRU to actually sort of look at properly at what the threat of the of the Welsh football team and the whole hoil that's gone around that, that people are gravitating to that, and we need to find a way to make sure that we do get those new players. And then we watched Wirra Davis's documentary during the week about players going over to Hartbury and then ended up in the English system. We've got to get our academies right, haven't we? Including for the women, because at the moment, we don't have a Cardiff women's rugby club, and the WRU say eventually we will be able to have regional women's rugby games again and teams, but not at the moment, not until the academies are sorted. Well, you've got whole generations that are not going to have, we as Cardiff fans could get around the Cardiff women's rugby team as well. It doesn't exist. So if it doesn't exist, you can't support them, can you?
When you talk about history, if just a little look at that museum will show you the history of Cardiff women's teams. Yeah. I think in 1905, I want to say, or really something, ridiculous, over 100 years ago, the history of Cardiff and
the history of the women's rugby during the war. When women's rugby was massive, a bit like women's football was massive, and then I think in most of those cases that they banned women from playing so that it was available to the men when they came back from the war. But there's the real history there, and it's if you can see people, then you can try and emulate them, can't you? And you're right, Theo Kabanga, fantastic. Ben Thomas, ex-captain of Cardiff and Vale College, and he's the poster boy at the Cardiff and Vale College. It's the ex-captain of that team, and watching them come on, it's great.
I heard a really good saying for that. It's if you can't see it, you can't be it, and that sums it up in terms of if you, and that's why sort of people, it really reminds me when people throw the word like woke around when for having more diverse you're literally just more diverse people on screen. But if you can't see it, then you're never going to be it, and it's really important to have those role models for people. I
don't know whether you saw the stat during the week that somebody kindly produced on homegrown players in the academy, and Cardiff, wasn't it 71.8% of the players came through the Cardiff academy. So
that's brilliant, isn't it?
We're doing something right, but we're just not able to hang on. We probably never would hang on to everybody, would we? But we want the chance to be able to hang on to more. And that's why we've been pushing the WRU in terms of funding, and why we'll carry on pushing them, because and why we'll push them about things like the derbies and wrecking the derbies this year and things like that. There's still so much to complain about, but hopefully we'll get the odd positive thing come through.
Yeah, I think we've said before that the problem is it just ends up in a moan fest, and people don't like listening to people moaning, and that in itself can drive people away. And
absolutely,
so you need to be critical when it is time to be critical. Hopefully you can be constructive about it. That's kind of what we wanted to do with this, is a little bit of a voice of positivity, try and cut through some of the white noise a little bit. So I had a couple of questions myself, and then there was a couple from social media that you kind of touched on already.
Oh, right. Okay.
So one thing I wanted to know is, do you ever feel that the amount of time you spend criticising the WRU should be time spent holding Cardiff to account? Because obviously you're quite rightfully vocal, and what we'll do is there's an interview, I think it was BBC 5 Live, about the Barbarians game, when that story kind of broke. We'll pin that underneath the podcast for this when we put that out there. But I think if we had a really, I'll say really good union governing body that was kind of aligned with the professional teams, the energy that you and the trust and the supporters group, the joint supporters groups, could be spent focused on the regions, if you know what I mean. Do you ever feel frustrated at how much time you have to focus on an external body?
I'm frustrated that they don't always appear to have to align, the regions and the WRU don't align with some kind of forward-looking strategy where they're going forward together, where they're actually thinking of each other together. So I'm frustrated with that. I mean, I think we didn't really set out to be, as a trust, we're very much focused on speaking to Cardiff, and we spend an awful lot of time meeting with Cardiff, telling them our views on things and where we think things could be improved. It's just a little thing, but the Pack Bar, which is the bar opposite it's where the shop used to be, so we sort of spent the last few weeks saying that how awful that is. It doesn't make anybody feel like they want to spend any time in there. So anyway, we've managed to get the club into some gear, and they've managed to get a bit of sponsorship from one of the brewing people to put 50 framed shirts up there and different things, just to make it look more like a rugby club. So we chip away at little things, and we chip away at big things. So please don't get the impression that we don't speak to Cardiff, but we're not in the business of knocking Cardiff where we, for the sake of it, because actually we're all passionate supporters, and what we want is for the club to be great. So actually most of our, it's mostly about suggestions and about gentle persuasion. With the WRU, I think it was also a similar way, but I think towards the end of last year, there was frustration that it just looked like they wanted to kill our game. They wanted to kill the professional games like teams as it was, so that they could recreate something different that probably they might have wanted to create 20 years ago. And it looked like that. So we put an awful lot of energy, because the joint sports group didn't really meet that often before that, but we've just felt that the last year that it's needed that energy in it. If I'm honest, it's probably waned back a bit, and we're now focused on our own clubs more. But we've got this agreement that we will meet every quarter with the WRU, so it's much less of a it's much less of a sort of thing that we do. But there are things that, like, with the Barbarians match, a lot of supporters wanted to know, why on earth did that happen? Why have we got a Clash of the Barbarians match with Cardiff, with Scarlets Cardiff? Why are we undermining the club so much, and the big paydays of the year, which is what they normally are? And so we do go and ask those questions, and then they have admitted it's a mistake. So hopefully, by us being a bit moany about things like that, it might next year, you never know, that mistake might not be made again. So yeah, I mean, I think it's always, I mean, and I think in particular because of it coincided with the misogyny stuff, and I was one of the very few women chairs or secretaries of a supporters group. I was obviously the folk. I took the role of leading on that for the joint supporters group, so I was on a lot of media in it, so it looked like that's what we were spending our whole time for. But actually, we were being chased on that one in particular. I don't think it was important.
Yeah, massively important. I suppose if every time you and the trust pop up on BBC, you're talking about the WRU, it's going to seem more like you're talking about the WRU rather than Cardiff Rugby itself.
Yeah.
So one question from sorry, I popped into my head there. You said that the clash with the Barbarians and the Scarlets was a mistake. I'm not sure I actually believe that, because the WRU also tried to arrange Bristol v Gloucester for the reverse fixture. So it's it's just a personal opinion. How incompetent could the WRU be to make the same mistake twice if it's such a serious mistake?
Well, I mean, it's not just the WRU. I mean, I have to say, there was a representative from the regions in that timetabling meeting as well. And, so the WRU have admitted that it was an error. And there's more to come. I mean, I don't think it's very widely known that Judgment Day's probably not going to happen at the stadium this time, because they've managed to clash it with a major, well, we think it might be the Taylor Swift setup, but they've so they're actually looking at the moment to see where they can hold Judgment Day. And they've always said, we've got to have Judgment Day, because a lot of supporters don't like Judgment. Some do, but others don't. But we've always accepted it because they reckon it makes £1 million for the 4 regions. So it's something that's been accepted, really. And that's been messed up. And so there are, that is, it'll be quite interesting to see what happens and where they actually put that. So I think it's about, I don't know if it's a lack of care or because the Bristol Gloucester thing, that was really, I was very opposed to that. That's just, they were quite unapologetic about that. They're saying it would have brought a lot of money in for the game in Wales. So every time you sort of try and criticise, they sort of say, well, that's the stuff that brings the money in, And if that's the whole thing about the Barbarians game, they're saying that in a non-World Cup year, there would be 4 internationals outside the 6 nations that brings in money for the wider rugby game in Wales. Because it's a Rugby World Cup year, there was only 3. So so it's sort of they're having to go with it because it makes money and we can't afford to lose it. But there just needs to be more joined up thinking. They need to sit there. I mean, if it takes them taking paper calendar in with these are the important dates. This is the derby. This, do not clash the derbies. Sort of respect those. And there are other areas that have derbies that need respecting, the Irish team. So it's not a thing they shouldn't be able to deal with. But between the WRU and the regions and their professional rugby board, there just needs to be a lot more thought into how we don't damage each other's brand and money making. It's so sorry if I sound moany, but that's what.
No, that's fine. I mean, I think going forward, an idea, presumably someone else may have had it, but have, at least if the Welsh teams are playing away games during that fixture, if it has to happen after the World Cup, because I looked a lot in 2019, Ospreys got less than 2,500 fans when they played against the Cheetahs, so it's no surprise they're trying to try something else. And then I think Dragons lost to Zebra that weekend, so I think
I'm just saying that Ospreys game, I'm astounded by it.
This year,
I don't think we'd have been picketing the Arms Park with if they were trying to take a Cardiff home game away, because it's an Ospreys home game, and they've taken it away from the Ospreys, and they haven't put it in their season ticket. So the Ospreys fans are having to pay. The Ospreys season ticket support, they're having to pay for that game. Sorry, I just think it's crazy.
I think also because it's on a Friday, anyone will struggle to travel from the area. I suppose the counter of that is, and I think we did want to mention this before, but Alan Wynne was also an Ospreys legend as well as a Wales legend. So if there is anyone from the four regions that did want to go to both games, the Ospreys are the only ones who can. So I guess maybe that's why they wanted to keep it on a Friday.
I don't know. I think you just. If they don't, I don't know whether they have whenever we've asked them about strategy meetings, say, oh, we've got a day in a few weeks' time, and you think, it probably needs to be more than a day, and it probably needs to be sort of lots of teams sitting around and then coming together with a strategy and coming up and sort of saying what is important to us, what are the important games, what are the important things, and sort of go from there, really.
Yeah, I fully understand the financials, and we said that if two players deserve a testimonial match, it is Halfpenny and Alan Wynne-Jones. It's just such a shame that it's been driven through a derby weekend, especially, but also through the league. I think I said if they'd done it pre-World Cup, I think a few other countries had 4 warm-up games, whereas we had 3 and 1 after. So they maybe could have arranged it with a few other retired players, sort of Bigger and Tiverick.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult. It would be great for it not to clash, but we're always going to have clashes with those home internationals and with the Six Nations. But for me, the holy grail of the derbies is the thing where I stand. That just should not have been allowed to happen.
Yeah. So going on to social media,
I think
sorry, Karen.
I thought I'd just jump in because I can see Harley trying to subtly put his hand up rather than jumping in. So I thought I'd give him a chance to ask a question.
Two points. One, just adding on the daft scheduling. They wanted to do a double header with the women's team, forgetting they were in New Zealand for the WXV1. So they'd forgotten about an international competition that one of their own teams were in. But I just want to go back because obviously, Alid, you said you wanted to talk about some more of the positives and going back to the point that, where I think is a really good story with part. I think it's CF10 in combination with Cardiff Supporters Trust was actually to get a supporters representative on the Cardiff Rugby Board.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how that works in the process.
Yeah.
Do you think that'd be something that other people might want to get?
Well, the Scarlets have already got one, but to be fair to them, they got one before us. It was one of our main aims when we set up CF10 was to get the supporter representative on the Cardiff Rugby Board. It wasn't viewed very well for quite a long time, but this is where perhaps the the meetings that we have, we've managed to persuade Cardiff over a number of years, probably about 3-4 years, that actually supporters could be trusted to be on the board, and that we were going to that it was going to be something valuable, because I think they realised that talking to us about things that we could add things, and that so eventually they agreed that that we could have a representative, and it was agreed that we would have election, and the electorate were going to be the CF10 members, Cardiff Rugby Supporters Club members, and season ticket holders, and the shareholders, and we CF10 decided that we would like David Allen to go forward, and we put all our eggs in that one basket, and actually he ended up being the nominee, and he and he's been doing that for over 2 years now. It's an interesting situation. He's been fantastic. He comes in, so they've got Cardiff Rugby have got a board meeting tomorrow. So last week he met with all the supporters groups and reps to talk about what issues we wanted raising at the rugby board, and so that he's got an idea of the things that are worrying people, or maybe not worrying people, but people would like to see. So he does that, and then he reports into the board, and he's a very active member of the board now, actually, and that's been really successful. So he comes to the end of his term in about a year's time, and then there'll be another election for another person. So it's got a 3-year term, and then somebody else can go. It's a hard job, because I remember Chris 16, which is the Scarlets Supporters Trust, said to us, be careful what you wish for, because when you get a supporter advisor on the board, they won't be able to tell you half the stuff that goes on, because they'll be sworn to secrecy. So and that's true. So there is lots of stuff that David can't tell us, but he's been very successful with David from that side, and me meeting with Richard Holland from this side, of getting them to tell us more than they perhaps would have done in the past. But there's still things they can't, and we don't get prior knowledge of somebody new being signed or things like that, because it's all, but it's been quite useful. So I think it's the way to go, and I think it's been quite a good experiment, but it needs people to be interested to do it as well. So the next time the post comes up, it will need people to put themselves forward and to be as committed as David is to actually meeting with the supporters groups. So we're quite pleased with how it's gone so far, but it's early days.
Did you have any more questions, Carwyn or Harley, before I move on to? Sorry, I just kind of took the conversation away there.
No, I've only got one more, which is you've mentioned all the good you do. If for general fans, what's the best way? Practically, what's the best way of having an influence, through getting in touch with yourselves, or etc., etc.?
Well, there's lots of ways, isn't there? You lot are having an influence. You were mentioned in the last meeting I had with Cardiff Rugby, so you're already being listened to. So
we won't get through our heads through the door after that mention.
No. I think they're really pleased. That's the one thing with them, is I think they clearly don't want criticism and things, but they want but people talking, and people being passionate enough to do something. So doing what you're doing is a good thing. So that's your outlet, isn't it? Joining CF10 would be a good way, and you could come to our board meetings. You could get involved in it. We have a very we've got a it's not Twitter now, is it? Whatever it is, group. That we're fairly that people can really have their say in the week that they cover it, and we're not too prescriptive about things, as long as you're sort of basically supporting Cardiff and not doing Cardiff down, then we're fairly up for it. But and then there's other ways. The Cardiff Rugby Supporters Club, they're more of a social group with the organising the coaches and things, and the organising. They did a lot of fundraising for the for players and things, but so there's lots of different ways. But in terms of having a say with the club, I think joining one of us or doing what you're doing is that, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because people they do listen, and they listen. Say they'll probably hear me telling you that they listen, but they do listen to people. But I think the main they're very good. I think the club is pretty good at listening to supporters. I think they'd rather listen to what your views are direct than have somebody standing up in the papers and saying you're all terrible, it's all awful. I think they would rather know what's annoying people. So they've been pretty good with that. And then but the other way, if you don't want to join any of that, is that David Allen has got an email that's on the Cardiff Rugby website as the supporter director, and he'll happily have emails from any supporter giving their views about things that are going on. So I mean, I think we've got it's a lot better than it was 7 years ago, I would say.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
I'm quite proud of that.
Yeah, I think it's moving in the right direction. I think, as you said, I feel that over the years, it especially probably last year, I mean, I was quite close to cancelling my season ticket this year when they announced the Barbarians game. I actually looked at the cancellation policy because I was so furious. But apparently it's not that easy to cancel your season ticket once you bought it, which is quite clever, I think. But I mean, I would have renewed. I will say I would have renewed anyway, just because I think it was just a moment of sort of panic. I just felt like I was being mocked, which I don't really appreciate. So if I think it's difficult to look up how maybe the WRU have acted without coming to the conclusion that they're not happy with the way things are and wanted to change it by
I think so, yeah.
dragging it down. So if Cardiff Rugby are listening, I would like to say, thank you for continuing. I think just existing is an achievement, and it doesn't get said enough, really. I think so.
I think we've got lots and lots and lots of things on our agenda that we'd like to have changed at Cardiff Rugby. But over the last year, we haven't brought up that many of them because it's all been about survival. And, there's no point us asking for grand things at the ground if we can't put a team out, and the backroom staff. We jokingly talk about the communications team. Well, the communications team is 2 people, to do, and that's all the comms. That's and so it's down to the bare bones, really, and I think you're right. I mean, I think our first and priority has been over the last year has been help our club survive. But we've got the back list of things that when our club survive, and hopefully we get a new investor, and that we quite like. There's lots of issues about that we'd quite like changes, but we're also quite. We know that these things can take time. Some things are more urgent than other things.
Yeah. So on that note, we've been asked what are the timescales for new shareholder announcements. Obviously, everyone's very excited. I'm guessing. How much can you tell us, or do you know?
I can't tell you anything because I don't really know. But what I do, but I did ask. Is there any news? And I've been told from a couple of sources it's very close, and that's literally all I've been told. It's we've signed the heads of terms agreements, and very complicated legalese now going on. We have submitted a list of about 20 questions to be included in some kind of Q&A when it, or, some kind of frequently asked questions document when it's finally announced about who they are. That's number one question, isn't it, really? And where we go from there. So the board have got those lists of questions. So all I can say is we've been told it's close. What close means, I have no idea, but we'll keep asking. But I'm confident that I'm not being bullshitted on this one.
That's good. I guess you normally tell. I mean, sometimes it's really obvious if you get told the same thing over and over, you can kind of tell. So, I think one thing I wanted to ask about on the back of that was during and again, I understand the legalities of it, but during when Dai Young was suspended, it was a long period where we weren't getting much communication. Then the season ticket renewals kind of came out, and it was kind of like, please buy your season ticket. And at that point, we didn't ever know if we had a head coach or a fly half or what was going on. So yeah, is there much of a commitment to? I know you said they've come out since and said that they want to commit to more frequent communications. Obviously, it's difficult if the communications team is 2 people, but is there kind of a commitment that I think everyone's just desperate for hope, and just little crumbs I think would be enough to keep people going.
That was just their most frustrating period, wasn't it? And I mean, I just kept having to tell myself, if I was in employment and that was going on, then I wouldn't want my employment position being discussed over the media, and that was the very real reality of the situation that you were dealing with, and to a certain extent, we'll still probably, some people might think that they've got the full story from various sources, but we probably never really know what went on. But I think they dealt with it with integrity in terms of the not discussing it until things were sorted. But oh my God, didn't it frustrate us all? I mean, we were just weekly sort of saying, you just can't go on like this. This is just ridiculous. And have we signed anybody? There was contracts waiting to be signed until it was, as well, sort of players' contracts and the like. And it was just the most awful situation. I was told that changes in the way contracts have been drawn up have been made. That means that they aren't in a situation where they can't discuss squad details and the like if anything like that ever happened again, which I think that was part, it was in, I think that was partly because it was a contract situation. I think the club were hurt by the way people were feeling, and they, about the fact that they couldn't communicate. Didn't make it any better for us lot waiting for anything. But I think it has meant that they have got a commitment to giving us more communication, and we are being a bit patient with them at the moment because of the investor situation. Because in a way, if they communicated much at the moment, you'd still be saying, well, who's this new investor? Why isn't that sorted? So I think they've probably got a period of grace from us for a little longer, and then they've committed to regular Q&As, regular information. I mean, I think they've been quite good with emails out in terms of the regular emails nowadays. I think that's got good. We probably need to hear a bit more from the chair and chief executive type things at times. So, I mean, I think, big room for improvement. And I know the board have discussed it, and David and a couple of others put a paper to the board about the improvement to the comms and the regularity of the comms and the like. So, and I think, and part of the reason they asked us for questions for the new investor was so that they can provide something substantial when they do the sort of full announcement. I mean, I think they've got to write to shareholders first, formally. So, and then they can announce it after that. But CF10 are a shareholder, so we should get a letter. So we should know a bit more. We've got our little group of shares, but we've also got proxies from lot of members. So we're actually surprisingly the 8th biggest shareholder in Cardiff Rugby. Not very big shareholder because most of them are held by other people, but it does mean that we will get the letter telling us what's going on as well. So sorry, I can't give you any more info.
No, that's fine. I mean, I think, as you said, everyone's just kind of hopeful. As you said, I think the difference is now, whereas before we kind of expected bad news to be coming and people were getting more frustrated, especially when you can't then announce signings. I think now we kind of know there's good news coming. I think that grace period, like you said, will probably be longer because you think, well,
yeah, we're not talking
light at the end of the tunnel as opposed to a train at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I mean the sad thing in a way, isn't it, that I don't know what it means in terms of playing budget or anything, because there's a cap anyway, isn't there, on the playing budget and the like, but what it'll mean for that I don't know. But at least a period of stability would be really rather good. And then and I think most long-term supporters probably have accepted that this year is going to be difficult, but there's only so many years you can have like that. People, we've got to start building the crowds.
Yeah, I think
build that based on success.
Yeah, especially when you hear people say, right, this short-term pain for long-term gain. And you think, well, the last 10 years haven't been drenched in glory, so it's difficult to keep asking people to rebuild, and then the rug gets pulled out again, and I was rebuilding them.
It is. We're all a bit bonkers, really, aren't we? Sorry, I probably shouldn't have said that. Also,
that's right.
Bonkers.
So Jonathan Carr has asked, you kind of mentioned it earlier, but any information on why Cardiff RFC not or weren't applying for the EDC, and since that kind of announcement has been made, has there been any further negotiations between us and the WRU?
Again, I'm a bit useless when it comes to this stuff. I haven't got the info, but I asked David. I mean, I wasn't really sure whether it was an RFC decision or whether it was a Cardiff Rugby decision, so whether it was sort of a wider decision. And I think the Steph Thomas articles were pretty accurate, and that, but it is being discussed by the board on Wednesday. So I suppose we'll get more out of it there. But I mean, I think it's based on the salary caps and the number of games and the like. I mean, I think it's been quite useful that Merthyr and Ponty and us have sort of stuck together as a region, because most of the other areas are actually put in now, haven't they, apart from Clonefley? So it's a bit of a frightening situation. But I think Stan Thomas, said that it would be commercial suicide as it is. So I suppose at the moment we just got to hope that they've got it right, and that maybe it's some kind of brinkmanship and things. But no, I don't have any more info than that, other than that it's been discussed on Wednesday at Cardiff Rugby Board.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that, because obviously I think it's two clubs per region, isn't it, that are going to be part of this EDC, or that was the plan, plus North Wales represented by RGC. So if there's a compatriots in arms sort of approach from the Cardiff region representatives, then it sort of scuppers those plans a little bit and maybe forces the hand of the WRU. But it does make it a little bit of an interesting situation going forward, and whether or not that those ties between Cardiff, Merthyr and Ponty continue to be as strong going forward, we'll see.
Yeah, and I don't know what their deadline for making that. I mean, I know the deadline for the expressions interest has gone. I don't know what their deadline for making the final team league is.
The discussion, the initial idea on that was around the sort of December period. So that's coming up sooner rather than later.
Well, I mean, I think we'll be raising it. We'll raise it with the WRU as well on the 20th of November. Whether there's anything they'll tell us, they'll probably just tell us that Cardiff region's got it wrong. But we'll sort of raise it, because it's yeah. I thought when I saw the first group of people, Cardiff, Merthyr and Ponty coming out, I thought, oh, maybe it's going to be a wider thing, and maybe there'll be the Dragons region or something as well, but hasn't worked out that way, has it? Really, at the moment.
Well, we'll see.
Sorry, Cowan or Harley, did you have any more questions? I thought I saw Harley trying to put his hand up, although that might just be me panicking because I didn't let him speak earlier.
No, I mean, as I have got the floor, and you sort of mentioned the investors and whether it's signing new hookers or stuff. I mean, one thing that's always comes up and is always battered around every couple of years is the redevelopment of CAP. Obviously, that involves interaction with Cardiff Athletic Club. So I don't know if the trust have been trying to deal with them to try and sort of help make them a bit more amenable, or
well, it's got more complicated than that now. So the Cardiff Athletic Club have set up a propco that's so it's not even a matter of just dealing with the Cardiff Athletic Club. Then they've got the propco, which is another group. I mean, yeah, we raise it regularly because I mean it's quite apart from whether it'd be nice to have a brand new stadium or a sort of new stand or anything like that. There are just major problems to do with disability access, to do with sort of there's so many. The women's toilets, which is a big thing that's raised. There's just so many. The museum, the bar facilities for away supporters as well, and there's so many things that we could get that could be put right by some investment, but at the moment it's got into a black hole. Well, I mean, I'm sure maybe the Cardiff Athletic Club and Propco wouldn't call it that, but I've got no news on that. We ask every time we meet, and eyes get raised, and I mean, I'm hoping that the Propco does do a job, and that we do get, because there is a point at which you can only keep ignoring it for so long, really, can't you? It's sort of I mean, I've seen 2 or 3 different plans for stadiums and stands over the years, all that look great, but none of which have appeared. So I don't know what else to say to you, really. It's that we're massively frustrated. Massively. It's like one of those questions on the agenda. Redevelopment of Cardiff Arms Park. No. Propco still haven't reported. But, I mean, there was a couple of months ago when it sounded like they were getting a bit further on. And there's some idea that they may have been doing, speaking to hotel investors and things on the North Stand area and about sort of facilities there, but that seems to have gone quiet as well. So sorry, I can't give you any more info on that.
That's okay. As you said, it's I think so many different. It feels like there's so many different parties and within Cardiff as well as outside of Cardiff that we're kind of involved with it. It's not just as simple as
we are an incredibly complicated club, really. I mean, it's probably been the saving grace of us sometimes, that having the most complicated setup, but it sometimes means that things take a long time.
Yeah. I think if Carwyn or Harley haven't got anything else, we'll say thank you there. You're welcome to stay with us. We're about to move on to the Scarlets game.
Yeah, that was my only question, was to lead into that, was to ask, we've mentioned all the, justifiable frustrations with this weekend's game, but there is a game going on, and how do you see it going?
Well, I'm not sure I had that much faith about us going to the Dragons, really. That was really rather a pleasant... that was rather pleasant, wasn't it? I think sadly for the Scarlets, it'll be a very poor crowd, and it might well be just as frustrating a game as the Dragons game was. I feel difficult saying maybe the Scarlets will win, but it sort of feels like that may happen. But I mean, they've got a lot to make up for from the the South African games, haven't they?
Yeah.
They've got a lot of pride to. But we were looking better. I mean, the game against Benetton, our team just looked tired, didn't they? After the first half, it just changed. But yesterday, at least they kept in there, and we can put up a fight, and derbies are always the one where we should put up the fight. So what I hope is that they shock me and they come back with a win, and I feel bad for ever doubting them, really.
I am backing us this weekend. I know I've said this every game so far. I've 50% right so far. So actually, I think Scarlets have had such a awful run out in South Africa. I think
terrible.
It'll be a 50-50 whether they rebound and rally or their confidence is so low. I think we did probably get a lot more out of the game than I think the average fan would have seen on Sunday, and then hopefully translate that onto a performance on the pitch. As you said, I think I'm hoping there will be a crowd, whether there will be or not. This is my first game out in Parky Scarlets, so I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, so I'm off for half term. I'm going over to see my family. My dad lives over in West Wales on the Thursday, so we're coming back via the game. So I thought we'd hit that up on the way. So I'm looking forward to it.
I'm hoping a decent amount of Cardiff fans make the way there. I don't know whether they will, but we've called for people to go there, and and you'd hope that a lot of the Scarlets fans, almost out of defiance, would go. And, I feel bad now saying that I'm not sure Cardiff are going to win, because I should be going to win every game, shouldn't I?
Don't feel bad. I'm Mr. Positive on this one. Carwyn's Mr. Negative / neutral. We haven't discovered what Harley's going to be yet.
Well, I predicted a draw last week, so I'm standing on that was positively that was positive for me. I think. The fans. Sorry, go on.
No, I used to have a mantra when we were travelling around watching Cardiff, which you don't go away expecting to win. you have the good weekend then, and if you do win, then you have an even better weekend.
It's like don't bet on your own team sort of approach, isn't it? Really?
Win all our home games, go away. If you get the odd one, great. And so it's the life of a Cardiff fan, really. If if you were thinking that you'd win everyone, you'd never go anywhere. Whereas just go and enjoy the crack.
I'm actually going to back Aled this week. I'm going to say Cardiff are going to win. I was very impressed by Cardiff against Scarlets in pre-season. I thought, that was a very dominant display. Despite I thought the scoreline actually didn't quite reflect how dominant Cardiff were, and I think Cardiff can win this weekend. I hope for the Scarlets' sake that they put in a good performance, because I think otherwise they're going to be under a bit of pressure going into that week 4. But Cardiff, we've shown good glimpses, albeit 40-minute performance against Benetton, whatever we count that as a performance last week on the weekend. But I am going to back Cardiff to win. You mentioned the fans. The added complication, obviously, for the fans is both sides have an added. What's the phrase? An added fire in the debate of this Wales game going on with Lee Halfpenny's retirement, and I suppose that I can understand some fans wanted to pay tribute to him as well for his influence on both national sides. But hopefully there's a good turnout from both respective fans on Saturday.
Yeah, hope so.
I'm going to you, Harley.
I'd say Cardiff win.
So also not on wrap as it's recording this week, as it's recording at the same time as this. So I sent my prediction to Lee, and I've predicted a Cardiff win. I think we're probably losing a lot less. So I know neither team are losing that many more players to Wales than I think Scarlet. I think losing Plumtree is going to be he's one of their big shining lights. So I think that's probably going to be quite a loss. The one thing I am slightly worried at the tight head berth, because obviously we're losing Azarati. I imagine Kieran Parker is going to be back. Well, I said I didn't even see. That's one thing. I didn't even see an announcement on that.
No,
I haven't seen either.
Not even from the URC, which I just assumed like high tackle. He's probably been out for three full games.
Yeah, I think it would be minimum 3, possible reduction to 2 on tackle school. But yeah, I just thought a minimum of 2 weeks, but I haven't seen anything either.
Yeah, so I'm slightly worried. So I think we're probably looking at Litterick and I'm guessing Will Davis King will have to step up, and then the young lad in the academy, who I feel like I should know some of these depths a bit better, having done a little depth chart a while back, but I've forgotten half the names now. Yeah, that's one area where I'm slightly worried, but I think our defence just looks so much more cohesive, and it looks like that's one thing I think we can rely on. If there was a Cardiff DNA, it's really dogged defence and then showing some fancy stuff when we do eventually get the ball.
If I was to add one other concern, it's Gareth Davis being back for Scarlets likely, and perhaps, I don't know on fitness, but if he is back fit, he was flying in the World Cup, and that's a player if you put your Cardiff shirt on, I'd rather not see on the weekend. Although on as far as seeing internationals, it's great to see him back sooner rather than later.
I think he might be on Wales rest still. That's the only.
I didn't actually realise he was in consideration, but because I was going to say that our defence is good, and I think they're losing Hardy and Costello. I didn't really. I think we would be able to snuff them out. It would just be that scrum, if that is underpowered because of the prop situation. Then I don't think it would be. It might not be a particularly pleasant game, but we'll draw it to a close there. I think we'll say thank you very much for our guest who's just alerted us that she has to drop off.
Yeah, really sorry about that.
No, it's fine. It's thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Both of our guests so far have been really generous. Had a lot to talk about, so thank you so much for joining us and sharing the information you can. Yeah,
I'm sorry it's not as much as I'd like to, but quite happy to come on again or get one of the other people from the board with a different perspective. We've got people who are sort of involved in the museum, we've got people who are involved in sort of different things. So, and people who are involved in writing the program notes that we put up and the blogs and things. So very happy for you to ask CF10 again and find somebody to come up. So thanks for asking me.
Oh, that would be brilliant. That's great. Thank you. Any anniversaries to get some of the sort of history behind it would be fantastic to get in the future. So thank you so much, Lynn.
Okay then. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Illuminating.
She's gone. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's good to see more perspective and insights than because I don't really know anything about the club really in terms of, I think how it's governed, internal governance and structures is baffling to me. So but yeah, I'm glad we've been talked about, which is interesting.
Yeah. I also need to shoot off because I've got an Indian waiting, so I take away. Wow. So I'm on that. I'm excited for that at the moment, so that's my priority.
Then we'll call it there.
Games.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, everyone listening. If you've got anything to share or engage with us, then please drop onto the socials. We'll have this uploaded either Tuesday or Wednesday, and we look forward to another weekend out in the Scarlets territory. Hopefully, we come away with a second win. That'll be 2 out of 3, which would be good for us. 0 for 3 for them. But we need to take everything we can get this season. So, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you all next time. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Cardiff Central podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe, rate and review wherever you listen to us, as it really helps spread the word. You can find us on all the usual social media channels or email us on welshregionalrugbypod@gmail.com. And remember, whatever the question is, rugby is always the answer.
Sports Social Podcast Network.